Welcome back to Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. We are here discussing episode 7. How's everybody doing today? That's you guys in the room.
Great.
Not them. Listeners. You guys.
That would be awkward if you were asking.
Rhea, Tiana, and Sarah back again.
Yay! Glad to be back. Feeling good
You're
about
welcome
it.
anytime.
Woohoo!
Anytime. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. We had our biggest week as far as downloads are concerned, so that is a good thing. So thanks for all the good response. Welcome to the new listeners. We've been part of this group on Facebook that Hulu's had going for a little while, and they just made it public the other day. And so now there's like over 800 and something people on there now.
Wow.
And so hopefully we have some new listeners. So welcome to the show if you are a first-time listener. Ratings and reviews are encouraged. If you are so inclined, please go to wherever you listen to your podcast and give us a rating and a review. Apparently, the companies that do such things like that very much.
Yeah, and, let us know what we're doing right, or if you
not
think
doing right.
something's terrible and we should stop.
Like if somebody needs to get woke or unwoke.
More woken.
More woked. Woken. Wakened. Awakened.
The awakening.
The awakening. There you go. Also, we have a radio station, Handmaid's Resistance Radio, on Slacker Radio. You can listen to that. All you got to do is go download the free app in any app store or the Google Play Store. And you can listen for free also at slacker.com. And we are also always looking for input on the station. So send us any suggestions you have via any, pretty much any social media you have. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you're so inclined to take a picture of your suggestion. And you can also email us at admin@allconsumingcontent.com. So currently, as I said, we are doing a review and rating giveaway with Feminist Press, giving away totes and pins from Telestic Designs. These are really cool, like all wood pins, which I want one of those wood. They like engrave them like a wood, like laser, like a laser, like a thing.
Laser.
I don't know how it works, but it's cool because like he's got one that's like Chris Cornell already, and he's only been dead for 2 days, and so it's really awesome. I had a Prince one. They had all kinds of stuff. They're really cool. So check them out. Telestic Designs. I just hit them up and I said, hey, we're doing a thing. You want to give us some stuff to give away for the thing? And they're like, yes. So we're in. Awesome. We have more giveaways coming up because I've talked to all these people that were part of the same group on Facebook and said, hey, we like to give away stuff. Do you have stuff? Because your stuff's cool. And we are doing some. I'm really excited about the one because it is going to be like a one-of-a-kind. She only makes them one-off. And she's going to give one away on our show, but I'm going to keep it secret because it's awesome and I can't wait.
This is when I get upset that we're part of the podcast and I
can't
can't win
get
the
it.
things.
You can't
never
win
been
the
the
things,
case before.
but she might make us one.
Maybe I could pay money for it.
All right, so interview this week, we have Delia Harrington, who I was contacted by, or I contacted her, I don't remember which. We just found each other on one of the social medias, I think both Facebook and Twitter, and so we've been kind of circling each other and trying to find a date, and we found it, and we interviewed today. So we are going to have that on the podcast. She is a freelance writer, photographer, activist, does all kinds of stuff with all kinds of organizations, has been all over the world doing all kinds of stuff, and so she was kind enough to join me, and she's also covering The Handmaid's Tale for the website Den of Geek. She does all kinds of stuff, and so I'm very intrigued by the life and career of a freelance person, because it just seems like it would be
Amazing.
crazy to me, like trying to figure out what you're going to do and how to do it. So that will be right in the middle of this podcast. Actually, we'll break about halfway through and put that in there. As far as the future of Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast is concerned. So we've got the second season of the show announced, and so it is my intent, our intent, to keep the show going in some capacity between the end of this season and the beginning of next season. We'll probably, I would say once a month would be what we go down to, but we're still kicking around the ideas. So if you have any ideas for content or people we should talk to, I'm kind of going to take it down because there's not going to be a show to talk about, so we have to talk about something. So I'm hoping to talk about more issues and topical stuff and pop culture stuff and interviews and such. So if anybody out there has anyone they feel we should talk to or can provide some content for us in those shows in between now and the next season, please contact us at the same places you did for everything else, social media and admin at allconsumingcontent.com. All right, so episode time. So where we left off, we just had figured out that the official Mexican lady does not care whether you've been raped, whether they've taken your children. All she cares about is, can you make babies for us? But then, lo and behold, secret Mexican secret agent guy says, I know where your husband is. And everybody's like, oh, we thought Luke was dead. Because we heard gunshots, but we didn't see them. So he says, I can get a message to your husband, and that's kind of where we leave off. He hands her a piece of paper and says, write something down. No pressure.
Yeah.
So this week was all kind of Luke-centric, which was, I liked it. I heard some varying reviews about the episode itself, but I thought it was nice kind of seeing what happened and where it went, and also getting to see more of the world of the kind of immediate post-Gilead takeover. So what did you guys think overall of the episode itself?
It was weird to be focused on a man. It just, like, seemed odd. I was very interested in what happened to him. But, yeah, it did seem super weird to me to be following a man along this journey for a whole episode. At first, when I realized they were going to tell us what happened to Luke, I thought it would be, like, a little part of the show. But, yeah.
It felt like a different TV show.
It
I
did.
felt like it was much more regular show. I don't know if that means anything, but just, okay, here's some exposition about this backstory of this character, because what's interesting is you might not know this, but then this happened, and then it felt like any other show, whereas I think the rest of the series has felt so unique that this was almost like a reminder that it's also
now
a TV show. Right, that is
do you think that had to do with the setting? Because he was
Yes.
in other places. He wasn't in Gilead.
We very rarely saw Gilead, and when we did, it could have been any kind of militarized state.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like, you weren't seeing the dress, I think, that
Things
makes
were
it
still
feel
falling
like
apart.
Gilead. Yeah.
I found the book to be vague in parts, which I liked. I liked that the book left a lot unexplained, but the fact that this episode addressed at least some of that, it brought up a lot more questions for me, which I also liked. But I liked getting some things answered anyways. And you're right, it was tense, but not in the way that the Handmaid's Tale is usually tense. It's like, it was a different tension because
It was like
Luke.
regular action movie tension.
Right.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Not
It was definitely
Handmaid's
tense. And
Tale.
Handmaid's
Handmaid's Tale, like,
It was an
slowly
escape
shaking
tale.
her head the
Right.
whole time. Like,
Right, it was. It was
Will they
right.
get away is a common story.
Yeah.
Thread, right?
Right.
As confusing as it was at times, I liked how they jumped the flashbacks around.
Me too.
And kind of piecemealed you the escape story of how they ended up in the car, and didn't do that literally. Is that
linearly?
Linearly, that's the word I'm looking for, that I can't say.
There were so many. I'd be interested to hear if you picked up on these or thought of these too. I thought there were so many kind of Holocaust parallels about when do we leave? What is it like to leave? Who are our allies? What happens to our allies? Who can resist? What happens when you resist? That I just thought, I wonder if they were watching a lot of things about the Holocaust or similar kinds of catastrophic, large-scale societal events like that, because there were just so many different parallels.
Well, and they finally have that argument about we should have left when I lost my job. We should have left when Moira left, which...
When all of us would have been out.
Right?
Yeah, when we got fired and there were
When
guys with
every
machine guns on
woman
the
loses
sidewalk.
their job,
Like,
I would have been so
would've
in
been the
Canada.
Oh my gosh. But she did say that they were held up by the visa process, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, when should we leave? Should we, no, I'm too established. Well, we got a visa. Like all of those questions that come up in a situation like this where some people leave super early and others leave throughout. So
I feel
that's very Holocaust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There is.
I really like that you got to see kind of when I was typing these notes up, I said the residue of the takeover. Like it's all still kind of fresh. You're going through the town and there's still like all the stuff spray painted on the wall, on the buildings, and all that stuff is just like had just happened, and like the guards are out there and when they're driving, and that one scene and she says, we're just going to breakfast, and that's not against the law, and she's like, not yet. So I did kind of like it was fresh, and we kind of get to see what the aftermath of their initial takeover was like.
The 3 years did seem quick to me when I was doing the math in my head, and I thought, how long would it take to transition them once you've captured the handmaids, teach them this whole new way of life, get them to subsist and all of that, put them with the first placement, because she'd said she'd been with a guy before. That one doesn't work out, and she's nearing the end of the second placement. So...
And all the children of Gilead.
Yes, and that did not match, and I thought that was an inconsistency, because they said children of Gilead, and those kids were older than...
They were like 6,
3,
some of them.
Yeah, there was some
3
older
would have
ones.
been the oldest, like, really. So.
Well, and then you'd have
Really
to count
2,
for pregnancy. Yeah,
yeah.
so like 2 would be 2 in a few months.
Yeah, so maybe a continuity issue there.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, they must be counting the young ones that they yanked out of the arms of their parents, that
That's
would
what
have
I was-
been immediately placed and aren't in school yet.
But I guess they could.
It
It
would've
just
been
seemed like they were
placed with
showing it
commanders,
as
I
this
guess.
is what we've created.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
These are the
And that
handmaids.
doesn't seem-
It was part of the
Well,
sales pitch.
but
Yeah.
realistically, the people they're showing to don't know any different.
Yeah.
They could
Sales
grab
pitch.
those kids off the street and put them in a dress and the Hitler Youth uniforms and rolled them out there and said, these were the kids we made, and you wouldn't know any
But at
different.
least older kids, there would be some kind of weird, like, this is your new mommy, they'd have to
I think
get
the
them.
older kids must have gone straight into the schools, like when we saw in that early
And not
episode
having
where
parents.
they're walking to the grocery store, and they pass the girls' school.
Yeah, that's
Remember
the
that?
first.
Yeah.
Like those are all older children.
Maybe they're not with wives and commanders.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where-
I wouldn't think so.
Like, where's Hannah? That's what I imagine Hannah
Yes.
would do
Yeah.
if
That's
they
gotta be
took
coming.
her. Right? She's got to be in one of those weird schools, and Hannah's old enough
Yeah.
to be like, no, I just ate pancakes with my mom last week.
That's not my
Right.
What the heck? Like,
right.
how did they do that whole transition? The transition process is fascinating altogether. So I'm glad they addressed some of that in the episode itself, because you have to wonder how it got from A to B, and this episode did address some of that.
Yeah, most of the time that we were seeing what happened to Luke, I was thinking like, okay, any minute now we're gonna find out what happened to Hannah, right?
Right?
Here it comes.
No, they're saving
Here
that
it
She
one.
comes.
must get her own episode.
Here it
That's too
comes.
big. Yeah, you gotta leave.
Yeah,
You gotta leave that for its whole other thing.
yeah. That's the next thing I'm really anxious to see. I feel like we've seen a lot of Serena Joy, we've seen a lot of Luke now. Tell me what happened to the kid.
Right. If they do a Commander episode, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be like, I don't care about that
I don't really
guy.
care about him.
All right, so let's dive into this. So our first scene is Luke, the escape scene, which we have come back to now on this episode. He wrecks the car, and we kind of get this part from Luke's vantage point at this point. So June and the kid take off, try and make it to Canada on foot, and Luke gets his gun out and clearly has not used one before. Fumbling with the bullets. Like, I'm sure anybody in that situation who's getting ready to get
Yeah.
shot by multiple
Possibly
men.
kill somebody.
I love
or
that
get
reference too when he was like, yeah, I used a gun in college. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Like you do.
It's
No.
not like pot. I just use the gun recreationally in my house. Like, what?
That
was a lie.
funny.
Oh god.
So the Guardians show up. He gets shot, and as he's laying there slumped over, because he's shot, but they shot better
Right.
because they're trained and have
Yeah,
bigger
this
guns.
is like the situation where the bad guys get to be good shots.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
almost
They're
never
not
happens.
stormtroopers.
Right.
They're not stormtroopers. And so we get our first flashback as he's like passing out, and just a very short flashback to June and Hannah playing with the tape and the tape recorder and the microphone. And that kid is cute as hell.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So next thing we get is the ambulance scene where he is riding in the ambulance and they did not kill him. And they're talking about questioning him, which I thought was an interesting thing because I figured maybe they were just going to shoot him.
Yeah. Why didn't
they
shoot
want
him?
they want the information on the resistance,
Right, because I
how'd
guess
you
they
get
got-
the
He
visas?
doesn't know much.
All right.
Well, I mean, he knows
Where'd you get those
who they get the
visas? How are we
visas
gonna
from,
get out?
how they get to the house, and
Man,
who's
I was
helping
still
you.
shocked. I was like, why did they not kill him so that they could just go get the...
I guess they just need information. I
Kill
mean,
him
at that
out.
point, it hasn't been very long, you wouldn't think. And
That's
so,
true. That's
they're
true.
still
They're
trying to
still
figure
working
out-
on like taking everything down. That's
Right.
true.
I
But you
don't
can still
know.
go to breakfast at that point.
I was with her. I didn't understand why they didn't just shoot him. And at one point, they're like, no, we need him alive. And I was like, why would they
Right.
need
He's
him
not like
alive?
an important person in the resistance or something.
And he didn't really get that far, even.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It doesn't look like he's pulling off a grand scheme here.
Once we get to the end of this episode, it is quite clear that
Yeah.
Luke has no delusions of... Or at least the audience is aware that Luke should not have any delusions of pulling off any
Or a
grand
gun.
schemes.
Just don't give him a gun.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
guns
no.
for Luke. So he's taking the ambulance. They don't kill him. And I thought the ambulance crash scene, where it's like flipping around, that was a really cool shot. Because I don't think, I mean, you've seen like car flipping scenes before, but I've never seen one where it did it that many times.
Yeah.
Like in a row that was shot like that, where it was like completely around and you're kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was awesome. That was very cool. So they've continued to do some excellent direction and creative, scene work. So he crashes, and as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, so obviously the other guys are getting passed out because that's how this story's going to go.
Right.
I was like, let's get a gun. First
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah,
First
take
thought.
all
Number
their
one,
shit.
get a
All
gun.
the guns.
Luke? No.
He had to get his
You
glasses.
gotta find my
How,
stuff.
how can you
Okay,
find
to
the
be
gun
fair,
if you
do
don't have
to
your
get
glasses?
I can't see shit.
Okay, Velma, we got to find the glasses first. I get it. It's fine. I'll buy the glasses. But everything else, I'm getting every gun I can find. And I'm shooting everybody that is in that place.
But it was
Yeah.
super smart that he got all of those pills. Just gonna
Well, I had to
say.
get the stuff because obviously he's shot.
Because he has
still.
been shot.
He has
I
been
know,
shot.
but he took a bunch.
And I will.
I don't
guess,
think he really knew what he was taking.
Oh. Well, I thought it was tactful, but I guess not.
That's true.
Luke's not pulling anything.
Yeah,
like that.
no. Totally take the drugs, but also, like, take some sutures.
But, and I will give him maybe he's in a little bit of shock.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's true. He lost a lot
Been
of blood.
shot in the
Just
abdomen,
fair.
which is the worst place to be shot.
Fair.
And he's just been in an ambulance crash. So maybe we're being a little too hard on Luke, which is fine.
Another thing that I'm going to be hard on Luke unnecessarily about is shoot everyone in the car
That's what I said.
immediately.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those people are going to wake up and be like, a man named Luke, or like somebody will help them and they'll get their memory back and they'll know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Turn him in.
Right?
So he does. He takes the jacket. He finally gets a gun, and but he doesn't take the big gun. Why do you not take the big gun? Take the big gun. Take both guns. Take everything you can. Nope.
It's
Small
like
gun.
Rambo.
Yep. Small gun in a
He
bag.
was married
It's cool.
for his looks. I think we've really come to
Yeah.
that
He was
consensus.
a trophy husband.
Yes.
He got married for his looks, and he seems sweet.
He continues this thing, and it continues throughout the episode where he is like, I just got to get back to my
He's
wife
just
and
not
kids.
good at this.
No.
He's like, bro, come on. This is not what you need to do. You need to...
That mentality is the same one that kept them there, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want what I
Yes.
want right now, and not what is the best, actual, smartest thing
Yeah,
to do.
I'm gonna go for the thing that my gut wants.
Exactly.
I'm gonna wait for the visas.
Even though the country no longer exists.
Yeah.
Small.
It did
factor
seem
there.
like they didn't realize that until they were told, though. Like, I don't think they got.
I think he had some blinders on, though. I think he
Yeah.
was not entirely looking for that information.
That's true.
Oh, he definitely had blinders on. He continues to have blinders on for the vast majority of his existence in this show. Especially
Yeah,
like...
Justin and I were trading some Luke
Oh.
observations.
Yeah.
So many
about his
things in the
decision-making.
show. He did something, and I was like, but why didn't you do this?
Yes, exactly.
Like, at least 5 times. So many things.
So he gets back to the car where they were, and then he kind of takes their same path, June and Hannah, and he finds the bag of stuff, and he finds the shoe. I was trying to like put my head around like, hey, this is where my kid and wife just got
what that would
stolen,
be
and
like.
man,
Yeah.
I am not very endeared to Luke. I should say I thought I should like him because in the book I think you're supposed to, or be sort of indifferent, but I'm not. I'm kind of on the other side about Luke. Like, when he sees the objects belonging to his wife and daughter, he is like kind of, oh no, and then just kind of moves on. And I get that he's in a survival situation and he's driven and you can't just sit there and mourn your wife and child, but I didn't love his reaction.
what did you feel his reaction should have been?
A little bit more upset than that. You can kind of assume they're dead then. So
I think he does assume that they're dead, but
Right.
not at that point. But, like, given the end of the show, like, I think he
right
has
then he
assumed at
does.
some point that they're dead and not coming back.
But like right then, I would think dead. They're dead.
I'm still going to give him a little bit of credit for the fact that he's bleeding out. He's probably walked an unknown number of miles.
True.
Pretty much vomited on himself and got in an ambulance accident. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a break.
Fair.
He's
Maybe
still overall
Maybe I'm being hard on Luke.
pretty much a moron. But
Yeah, I feel just more like he's just not, even in a perfect state, just not prepared for this situation in a way that I think some other humans would be.
true.
Like, maybe
So Luke makes his way kind of on the same path and ends up kind of in a town, I guess. We don't really know where he is.
Super eerie.
And this is kind of the part where you actually see kind of the immediate aftermath of the Gilead takeover and all the spray painting on the walls of the buildings, gender traitor, which I thought that was not something you would spray paint.
No.
I thought that was I thought that was just there because the show they had that. Is that in the book?
because that's what
The
they
word?
call
No.
gay people.
That they came up with that. And then the fags die. That's something that someone would
Yeah,
spray
that
paint
is.
on the side of a
Spray
wall.
People spray paint that right
like,
now.
Yeah.
Today that happens.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
right now.
No,
I have
do you know how much
painted
spray
somewhere.
paint you have to put gender traitor giant on the side of the
Also, it's almost like 1984, like the official thing to say, right? It's not the slang insult.
I was going to say,
It's
that's like
it's
the
one that comes
ants
from the government.
phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
like that's...
Yes.
don't
Yeah, you
say
wouldn't think
that.
the guys out there, bombarding the streets and ransacking all the shops would be like, gee.
How do you spell traitor?
That's
Phil,
that's
come on!
that's an OR at the end of traitor.
I gotta
Don't get
start over.
confused.
Yeah,
And so
it
he-
was
he-
a little Walking Dead-esque.
He makes his way to this cafe, we guess, and then he passes out. Like you do when you've been shot and walking for a long time.
And it's cold. I really noticed the weather so much in this, similar
Yeah.
to Winter's Bone, where you
Yeah.
just feel like the cold is such an essential
Yeah.
part of the setting that I felt like it needed to be cold for it to be more miserable in a very specific way. Because cold slows you down too.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, you can't think
Again,
as well.
very Kubrick-esque.
They're in Boston, right?
Yes.
I think at this point they're way north
Oh,
of Boston. I
right.
think they're supposed to be
Duh.
like in Maine or something.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about
Because
that.
they were crossing on foot, and I think earlier in the season somebody referenced that they were trying to cross in Maine.
So we do get another flashback once he's passed out. We got June, Hannah, Luke, and this is where they're driving to meet the guy who's going to drive them out of town. So they're driving through downtown, and this is when they have the conversation about, we're just going to breakfast. It's okay. It's not against the law yet. And she's like,
Don't look
not yet.
suspicious.
Right. Everybody cool. Be
Meanwhile, she looks super suspicious.
And there's, at this point in the process of Gilead, the patrols are out, the machine gun guys are everywhere. Hannah's asleep, Benadrylled, like you do, in the back seat, like you would if you're gonna make a run for the border, as it were.
True.
So we get to. Okay, so this is a great part. I thought it was really funny that they did have them argue over the fact that they hadn't left yet. Like it was a normal conversation argument you
It
would
was
have
a
as a
normal
married couple.
Yeah.
They're just arguing over, oh my god, we should have left the fact that our country is being taken over by crazy people when Moira did. And Luke is like, we had a kid, and Moira went on foot, so that wasn't really an option. But I just thought it was funny.
Still though, should have left earlier.
Yes.
I agree. You can't just walk your kid
You can.
that far.
They do it in The Sound of Music. They walk across the Alps.
That's true.
Right? Like,
Well, if
come
The
on.
Sound of Music is anything, it's clearly a guide for life.
It's based on a true story. They really did cross
Is
the
it
Alps
really?
on foot. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
You can go to the Von Trapp family lodge in Vermont.
No, you cannot.
Yes, you can.
We have been plotting on going there for many years. It has just not happened yet. In case you didn't know, it is my favorite movie of all time.
No.
I can play all of it on the piano.
It's also my mother-in-law's favorite
Man.
movie of all time.
You learn something new every day. Sarah, piano skills.
Oh, yeah. I played competitively for 10 years.
Really?
What?
Way to go, Sarah!
This is the same reaction that happened at lunch at work.
No.
Last year, I was like,
I
yeah, I
know,
played
you want
classical
to be
piano
shocked.
for many years. And everyone was like, you did what? Jean was like,
Well, it's not like it ever comes up. It's one of those things that never comes up in conversation.
this is true.
You don't have very many. Oh, that one time when I was having
We need to get a
competitive
piano in the
contest,
lunchroom.
yeah.
We should just put it in there and have you...
I should get out my little trophies and statues and all that
Yes.
crap.
And
Yeah.
trophies.
Yeah. If you win consecutive years in a row, you get trophies and stuff.
That's awesome.
It's no big deal. It's just really good at it.
Kind of a big deal, but
Totally cool.
whatever.
So they have the argument, which is awesome because it's typical married argument, which I'm sure everyone has had a similar argument to that hopefully didn't involve having to escape peril.
But it was a
my
way.
my comment on everything she says is yep, and yep. You should have left when the guy with the machine gun showed up at your office and said, "Guess what? You don't have a job anymore." That would have been my son. That'd have been enough for me, and I don't know why it wasn't enough.
So it was the
Because
show's.
Luke said he was going to take care of them.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Let's all remember their solution to that
Now we get to
problem.
see how
It'll be
Luke's going to
okay,
take care of it. So we get to our meeting with Mr. Whitford, who is the man who will be driving them out of town. Apparently just out of the county, which is,
Right?
enough of a thing that you have to get a guy to drive you out of the county at this point, which is terrifying to think about.
I did not remember that June's mom was a doctor from the book, but I did remember that she was a rabid feminist. So I couldn't remember if maybe
Yeah,
I
I do
just didn't
remember talking
remember
about
all
that.
the details.
Yeah, I don't remember.
No, I don't
remember
think
her
so. I think they
being a
just
doctor.
threw that in to
I think
work
they
with the
threw
plot.
that in to work the vasectomy angle in there
Yeah,
because he
that's
said
fair.
she gave him the snip after they outlawed it, which I did put an interesting note on here, and only because I was watching this movie 3 months ago about this feminist movement in the 70s. I guess the whole movement, really. And they were talking about doing home abortions
Oh,
because they were illegal. And so they would have some one person's house, and they had doctors come in and show them kind of as a group how to perform them, and so they would do them. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of reverse take on that the men would have to go find somewhere to get a vasectomy, and because they outlawed it because it's baby making time, got to save the planet.
Curious. I'm going to have to do some research on this because I know the state of Israel has some really interesting kind of reproduction, fertility laws and issues because they are so heavily invested in creating more Jews. This is the Jewish state. This is what we are doing. We want more Jews. So they heavily invest in infertility treatment and everything is covered and all of that. But I think they might have some kind of
Let me ask you this then.
anti-vasectomy.
Because I was reading, and I know we said we were going to talk about this. So there was an article that was a few weeks ago that I read that was kind of a rundown of laws that were similar, not all at once, but in countries that had similar effects of what the Handmaid's Tale stuff has. So in Israel, they were talking about how you can't divorce
Yeah.
Your husband?
Well,
Yeah.
so in Israel, marriage is only religious. So you can only get married in a religious ceremony, which means both partners have to be Jewish. So you can be married and not religious in Israel, but you have to get married elsewhere and then move to
So
Israel.
you're not getting married in
if you
Israel
are-
at all?
You cannot have a secular wedding in Israel.
Yeah.
So in order to get married, you have to be. Now there are different rules for like Arab Israelis that they follow, but you can't be. And even I couldn't get married in Israel because my conversion wouldn't be recognized by the Orthodox.
So what about divorcing? Because
You do have to get both parties to agree. Like a husband has to let a wife out of a marriage.
It's called a get. The husband has to grant the woman the right to divorce.
So she just can't. She can't leave because the situation
and
is
she can't
bad.
get remarried either.
Until she
has a get.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a whole category of women called aganot, who are they call them chained women, who are stuck to their husbands because the husbands won't give them a get. It's considered a very terrible thing to do on the man's part. It is not an acceptable thing to do, but people do it.
Why wouldn't your conversion be recognized?
Because I had a Reform rabbi do the conversion, and Orthodox rabbis don't recognize a lot of Reform rabbis, especially because she's a woman. So because they don't recognize female rabbis, they would say you weren't converted according to our precepts. So they asked me if I cared about that, and I said no.
So Mr. Whitford, this is my favorite part. This might be my favorite dumb Luke move of the day. So he's like, you guys need to get rid of everything. Do you have your phones? Chucks the phones on the ground, stomps on them, and Luke's like, oh, bro, my phone.
And then turned it off.
There were dudes with machine guns on the street.
Yeah.
Get rid of your iPhone. Suck it up. And
It'll
he's
be
like,
okay.
all right, you guys got to get in the trunk. And Luke's like, oh. And then he's like, you got to get rid of all your stuff. You can't look like you're running. And Luke is like, oh, again.
I know.
And I'm like,
he takes out his wedding photo album. And I'm like, dude.
My note was, shut up and get in the car. So they're driving. They get pulled over. But luckily, as the script says, we have a friendly guardian who is a friend of Mr. Whitford, who does a little open the trunk, look in, nothing to see here, close the trunk and move on, because apparently he took Mr. Whitford's... I couldn't remember if he took his sister to the prom or if Mr. Whitford took his sister to the prom.
Mr. Whitford took his sister to the prom.
And he owes me a favor. I don't know what that means. Like, if things been good with the sister or went bad with the sister. So
think
now
it was
you owe me-
bad.
The sister maybe couldn't find a date.
Not desirable.
Ah, okay. I got you there. So they keep on trucking. And the note I had on here is it was just interesting to think about. Because I think the reason they do that is because if this ever happens and it's localized like it is seemingly in this situation, that you would know the people that are like involved
the guardians.
with everything. The guardians are going to be like your neighbors or like some guy you know that is like your cousin's mailman or something. It's just going to be like some connection, which is just bizarre to think about because for the vast majority of the show, they've kind of been nameless, faceless guys with machine guns on the street. And to like see that kind of having a connection to another character, you're like, oh, like that would be like my cousin Bob down the street.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, they're in Boston. They're in a major city. So, right. It wouldn't be as bad as here. But yeah, that would be super strange and extra creepy. Like you would think that maybe a lot of people would be able to talk their way out of trouble. Because they would just happen to know the person with the gun.
All right, so we've hit about our halfway point. So right now we are going to throw in our interview here. This is, again, we're going to do an interview with Delia Harrington, journalist, photographer, activist, freelance, kind of everything, who does a lot of things in the way of activism, and she's going to actually have a podcast that she's trying to put together for sexual assault victims.
Nice.
Which is really cool. So she's going to talk about that here in a moment. This is Justin, the Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. We are here with Delia Harrington, photojournalist, writer, freelance, kind of mercenary of everything, it seems. How you doing today, Delia?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Tell me what you're doing right now and tell us a little bit about yourself because I am, and we'll get into this, I'm very interested in the life of the freelance journalist.
Sure. So I'm an activist, a digital communication strategist, and a freelance writer and photographer, as you mentioned. It's a mixed bag at any given time. So right now, for example, I'm taking a break between two jobs. So today I'm recording this, and then I'm going to go photograph, do a shoot, and then I'm going to meet up with another writer. But then, 2 weeks from now, I'll be all day in an office. This past August, I was in Nairobi and then Uganda. So it changes up quite a bit, which I really enjoy.
How did you get into this whole freelance lifestyle?
When I graduated, it was in a very recession type time. And so full-time work was not great. So while I was job hunting, I had always loved writing, and I started writing for a bunch of different places. Stop Street Harassment was a great one that I loved because I did a lot of anti-street harassment activism, and I had written in college for places like her campus, and so I just was doing that more and more, and I've pretty much always had a full-time job of some kind, which I enjoy because it frees me up to take some gigs that are maybe lower paying, but are really great opportunities, which a lot of people can't afford to do if they're doing this for a full-time living. But it also means that I have to be really choosy because I tend to want to say yes to everything, which as you notice, I do a lot of different things, and it's because I like to say yes to things that are exciting. But when you have limited time, when you can only work nights and weekends, it forces you to be really picky and to only work on the stuff that's most important to you, which having a day job forces me to do that a bit.
Good. So how do you fit that in with your day job? I guess you have to find a full-time employer that is fairly flexible.
Yeah, that helps. It also just means I stay up really late and don't sleep a lot. And when I say day job, it's not like I'm going to go work in finance or something. Like I work for nonprofits. The place that I'm going to work for is Boston Healthcare for the Homeless. They're like an amazing organization. So it really helps that everything that I do in my life all works towards the same overall purpose, which is really great storytelling about issues that are really important to me.
So let's discuss The Handmaid's Tale, since obviously this is our podcast covering the show. I know you're covering it for Den of Geek, correct?
Yes.
And
So I did a spoiler-free review of the first 3 episodes. And since then, I've been doing sort of one-off features of anything that's sort of piqued our interest. It hasn't been episode recaps or reviews, which it's kind of nice because it frees me up to write about sort of across various episodes. So not so much tying to any one particular episode, which is sort of freeing in a way.
So what has been your biggest impression of the show thus far?
I mean, I've been really pleasantly blown away. I was, nervous to be so excited for the show because I think I've seen, we've all seen things where they translate a book to screen and it doesn't go so well. And then also when they try to capture social issues, or especially social issues for a specific community, that often doesn't go so hot.
Right.
But
Well, and they had a little speed bump there at the beginning with the cast kind of wavering on, well, not even wavering, just coming out and outright saying that it wasn't necessarily a feminist show.
So in some ways, I get Margaret Atwood. She, later went in and said, oh, they should have added like an only and a not, or, she sort of edited, as a writer often does. She was editing their statement. I honestly think part of that has to do with where she falls in the feminist history and her understanding of feminism, which when I think about sort of the current wave of feminism, it's an intersectional feminism that really centers Black women, women of color, immigrants. It's a feminism that values trans women. TERFs, right. Trans exclusionary radical feminists, are not welcome in any feminist space that I belong in. And I do think there's value in the women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights statement. Right. But yeah, when you truncate all that down, especially when you're sitting next to, like an executive from Hulu, it does make it sound like you're just trying to avoid
controversy. Yes.
Yeah, and it's especially upsetting when they clearly were using the idea of feminism and the idea of all of the momentum that's been built after the inauguration to try and sell the show. So you can't use us for one thing and then turn around and not love us. And I also do feel like the show itself, it has its feminism in check. I do think that I was just listening to your last episode, and the race thing is not being handled on the show. Like, it's just not being handled, right? Like, they're just ignoring it. They've tried to isolate the variable, which is not how race works, right? You can't just be like, we're just not going to talk about this one.
Especially in a society that's been taken over by a right-wing religious, organization. you would think that it would come up sometime.
Yeah, I think the best explanation I read about it was a commentator saying, it would be actually really difficult to deport as many people of color as they would have to deport at this point, given the numbers. So that would be more of an uphill battle, and just the logistics of it would be really difficult. And like that makes sense to me. But then like have someone say that, have them discuss that. I did notice that it seemed like most of the men anyway, like the Black men and other men of color that I saw, it seemed more or less like they were, at least on the men's side, they were in the lower ranks, so to speak, and they were more in the service positions. If they made more of a point of that and there was some discussion of that and there was thought behind that, I think that would be a worthwhile and interesting commentary. But you have to, pick a direction and commit to it.
But other than stumbling out of the gate with the feminism thing and the race situation, your impressions of the show have been pretty positive overall.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it was very well directed. Reed Morano, I thought, did a great job setting the tone. I think that they've done an excellent job translating it. Episode 3 was really tough to watch. I thought that was the hardest one so far, but it really felt like something that would happen in this world. All of that extra material really flowed pretty seamlessly, and I felt like they've done a great job translating things.
I would agree that I there's been nothing that I felt has been forced or out of line with the, tone of the book or the rest of the show. So I think they've done a good job filling in the rest of the world. And it's been kind of cool to see. So what does the future hold for you? What do you got coming up here that people can latch onto and look for?
There's definitely going to be some more articles on The Handmaid's Tale coming up. I'm also working on actually a podcast about sexual assault and how that affects our daily lives. So that should be coming up in the next few months. I'll be sure to share that around when that comes out.
Yeah, let us know. We'll definitely put the word out there to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I do a lot of work with Boston Area Rape Crisis Center. So hopefully we'll be interviewing survivors and experts and a whole bunch of people. Any
other writing stuff coming up? Any photography?
We shall see. I've got a few things in the hopper, but they're not quite ready to come out yet. I've been working for a while on a project on sexual assault survivors' relationships to their bodies. And that is it's been a long one, because when you work with subjects on a stigmatized issue, you really have to go at their pace and make sure everyone's really comfortable. And I offer people whatever level of anonymity they would like. But so far, most people have chosen to not be anonymous. They've chosen to show their faces or some amount of their faces, which I've been really touched with, that they trust me to do that. But that does mean there's a lot of, sort of upfront work before I ever take a single picture or take out my camera. Most photography that I see about sexual assault survivors, it's either sort of the same kind of, like, it's done by professional photographers and it's just like a woman looking out a window in shadow being sad, or it's like someone who's more an activist and like they're holding up a sign with numbers, which is really cool, and like it's about the message and it just so happens to be a photo, and it's really great messaging. But I really wanted to do something that unified those two things and was like good photography but also had a good message, because I don't feel like I'm really seeing a lot that's both.
Excellent. I think that's the best way to handle that. If you don't see it being portrayed the way you want to do it, just go out and do it. And I think
that's
all
the
things that you, I think all the things that you're doing, again, my goal with doing these interviews on the podcast was to kind of take a show that is very heavy subject matter wise and kind of go, okay, let's look at what's going on out here and who's doing positive things. And I've looked at all your stuff, and I think what you're doing is fantastic, and the way you're doing it is great. And I hope your podcast becomes a great success. I think it's a very important issue to discuss. So once again, this is Delia Harrington, and she is with us here on Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. So tell everybody, if they want to find your stuff and get a hold of you in the various ways that they can, what's the best way to do it?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Delia Mary, DeliaMary, and my website is deliaharrington.com.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. It's finally nice to talk to you. So it's been really good. And I hope, again, that all your projects and the podcast especially becomes a great success. And just keep us posted so we can promote that for you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Once again, that was Delia Harrington. This is Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast proudly presents Hardcore Lady Quotes. Quotes of inspiration, empowerment, and rebellion, chosen, recorded, and read by my kid.
For most of history, Anonymous was a woman. Virginia Woolf.
All right, we're back. Thank you to Delia Harrington once again for joining our podcast. Hopefully that she gets her podcast going because it sounds really cool. All right, so back to the adventures of misguided Luke. So at this point, we are still in kind of our flashback. We get to the safe house that Mr. Whitford has driven us to.
I also think of Bradley Whitford. Like I go straight to.
I wonder if that's like a thing.
Yeah.
Like if somebody knows Brad Whitford and is like, we'll call him Mr. Whitford. I also think it's like, what is Serena Joy and the Commander's last name again?
Waterford.
Waterford. That's a little too close for me. I think, come on, like give me another name with another letter.
Well, I really associate that name seems really appropriate for them to me because it reminds me of Waterford crystals.
Oh, true. It does sound very
sounds very
class.
snooty.
Very fancy.
Yeah, it
Very
sounds
fancy.
very snooty.
So we get to the safe house, as I refer to it. So no neighbors for miles, 6 in one direction, 3 in another, 3 in another. So you're like, oh, cool, that's far enough. So we get in, and this is when Luke gets his gun lesson. And he's like, although I will say, Mr. Whitford, not the most attentive of teachers. You do this, you put him in here, and then you shoot. Oh,
It was very fast.
Yes.
Yeah, Luke totally acted like he got it.
right. Well, he did, right?
Like,
He was
no.
like, oh, okay. I would have been like, no, slower.
No.
One more time. Show me how to do it.
He did not get it.
So, and then Mr. Whitford says, I'm going to get your Canadian passports. And Luke's like, well, that's cool. I got American ones. And he said, America don't mean nothing anymore. Those are gone. That's over, is the quote.
Yeah, I
Because that's over. So he leaves. And then we get another, I guess, sort of flashback of a flashback. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Wait, that was another Holocaust moment that I was thinking, where the passports don't mean anything anymore. Was also like, if you're Jewish, your passport means nothing anymore.
Yeah.
If you're a gypsy, but also the cash, the German cash, all of a sudden meant nothing
Well, the
because
currency.
the currency didn't.
Did they address that at all?
No,
money-
they don't.
money at all
That's
in,
interesting. No.
Maybe that's a bigger, larger task thing.
Doesn't the commander reference not having money anymore, though?
I don't
In
know.
a couple of
And
the
interesting-
Scrabble game nights?
In the book, because Margaret Atwood is very into this sci-fi language, and she does this in the Oryx and Crake books too, like the CompuBank, and she has all these kind of words
they do
for
that in the book.
the
They talk about
futuristic
company. Yeah.
systems, and they haven't done that in the show. But I feel like that's her author's. It's part of her author's style that I don't know if it translates to TV.
Yeah, I remember like getting distracted by that when I was reading the book. I was like, what is this?
Because it's so
CompuBank thing?
1985
Like,
too.
yeah,
to
it's-
think like in
Yeah.
the future, all of our
Yeah.
money will be in the
It does, it
internet.
sounds
I
like-
was like, does she
Sounds like an old search engine.
Visa? Like, I don't know what that's
Go
about.
search that up on CompuBank or Alta Vista.
Alta Vista.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so we get woken up. Now we're finally back with Luke in the cafe where he's passed out because he's tired of walking and he's all shut up. So this group wakes him up and they think he's a guardian because he has stolen the coat. And he's like, not a guardian. Don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. So they don't shoot him. And the one woman who we found, her name is Zoe. She's kind of the leader of the group. She's a doctor. She patches him up and she's like, okay, come with us. And the one dude's like, really? We got to take more people. So, they're probably been wandering around trying to get out, scavenging and trying to make their run for Canada. And they're just picking up strays along the way. So the group, the people that are fleeing with them is described as Army Brat, 2 strays, a gay and a nun. The stray is the short blonde-haired woman who pretty much literally doesn't speak
And
the
she's
entire.
fingering her
Yes,
red
and she
tag.
has her kettle tag on her ear, which I thought was interesting. And she does not
Yeah.
talk.
I was really curious this whole season. When did they do that?
Because that is fast.
Yeah,
because the
that's
society
what I
has
thought,
not
too.
turned over yet all
That's
the
what I
way.
thought, too.
But they've already, they must be going in phases. Maybe
Right?
city by city.
Well,
Maybe
right?
New York got captured
well,
first.
and June doesn't have her red tag.
June hasn't even. Oh, well, she has it now. But 3
She
years
does
later.
now, but this is just like a day after he got separated from her.
Yeah.
Well,
So
maybe
on
She didn't have her
the
red
same
tag,
day that
so
they
it
can
must
go
be
to
happening.
breakfast, there are women who are already handmaids.
So maybe it's happening in phases against different
It
parts
would
of
have
the country.
to.
Yeah.
Because they do say that they rescued her. She was the only one that made it out of the training center, is what they called it. I just thought that was interesting.
I love that character as it's developed throughout because I thought, in some ways, the handmaid scenes we've seen so far where they're learning the information, yes, they're shocked, but they're not traumatized. They're not shell-shocked. And Janine is the only one who we see have this radical
Big break.
change. And really, you think probably some of them would have shut down completely because
this
this
woman does.
is
Yeah.
really
Anybody who has like a history of sexual assault or
Yeah.
anybody who's like lived in a really abusive relationship, like that's exactly what you were putting them back into. I remember thinking that during the Red Center flashbacks we've had throughout the season, it seemed crazy that nobody else seemed to think it was as crazy as
they all seem to think like, oh, this
like,
really
this
is terrible.
Nuts, not,
right.
oh, this is the worst thing that has ever happened in my life.
Again, it's a lot of silent acting, and so she's another one that has to do a lot
of
with
silent
her.
acting in the show.
So she definitely conveyed traumatized, for sure.
It reminds me of the book Speak, too. Have you read Speak? Which is a similar premise of not talking as a way of kind of processing sexual assault. And
who wrote that?
Lori Halse Anderson. It is great if listeners are looking for good YA book recommendations.
Sure, let's check that out. And so Luke is kind of in, I just want to find my wife and kid mode still. And they're like, you can't get out of this van. And Luke's like, I need to get out of this van. And they're like, it would be bad. Kind of like in Ghostbusters. Don't cross the streams. Why? It would be bad. Don't get out of the van, Luke. It would be bad. Why? Well, let me show you. But first, another flashback to the cabin. So let's make some pancakes. Let's try and make it normal, which is, I guess, is what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep it as normal for Hannah as possible, which I think any parent can completely understand. You're trying to normalize a insane situation.
And they have it pretty good in the cabin if she has a choice of blueberries or chocolate chips, right? Like they're being fed pretty well.
There's food. They have a fireplace.
Good safe house. Well done. But then, here we go. You know what you don't do when you're on the run? You don't go skip rocks by the lake.
Nope.
That was dumb.
Nope.
What the hell were they thinking?
No matter.
And Frank teaches us.
It's like making out in the hallway.
That
you don't go
stay
be loud
in the
out
attic and you play cards and you have a crush on the person you're hiding with and you just stay there.
You're right in your
Be
journal.
quiet.
Me and Rhea were texting about this. I was like, what are they doing? And Rhea's like, did nobody learn anything from Diary Man Frank? And I was like,
This is why books are important.
Yeah.
Read more, people. Read more.
So then Hunter Joe, as he is referred to by Sarah, Hunter Joe comes down to the lake with his dog.
No, Army Joe.
Army Joe, I'm sorry. He's Army Joe.
G.I. Joe, if you will.
Okay.
I kind of love this coming together of different sectors of society, too.
Yeah.
You've got, like, the educated city folk, and then, you know, Army Joe, who's just out with his rifle, or, I don't know, whatever kind of gun he had.
It was
Thank
a
you.
rifle.
Sometimes I can guess correctly. And they're all, you know, they're, like, having this
hunting
nice
dog.
moment.
And his dog.
Little buddy.
And everybody's kind of like, uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, first, when you hear the dog, don't you think it's the Guardian?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, they did a good job of setting that up. So Army Joe, he shows up in later, because then they leave, because nothing happens. Thankfully, Army Joe's kind of cool, but you still don't know if Army Joe's on the level. Like, is he going to go?
Army Joe is
They totally thought he was going to turn them in. Yeah.
And so now, so now they're really like, okay, time to get the hell out of here.
It's over.
But before they can, Army Joe shows up again and says, hey, don't go the main way. Take the back roads in Morocco because your boy's hanging up on a street lamp up there and he's not getting your visas anytime soon.
Yeah, and still in the scene before he got to the you're not getting your visas part, Luke was like, but we need to wait for the visas. I was like, no, you do not.
He's slow on the
Dude,
uptake.
you just totally lucked out that he is not a secret guardian. Get the fuck out of there.
Exactly. Luke, once again, just
ask
not...
him if you can take his rifle and get the fuck out of there.
The urgency of the situation does not appear to be apparent to Luke. Like,
not even when he gets shot.
Yes,
Keep in mind.
Serious testosterone poisoning going on. He really just like...
I don't know if that has anything to do with testosterone. I think that is just...
He is, I don't know.
Except there's an element of him, I think, that he thinks he can save them all single-handedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
He
think they
thinks
do
it's
kind of
gonna
set
be
that
fine
up
'cause he's
in the
there.
first or second episode, whenever that was. Like, I'll take care of you. And that's
You'll all be fine because you have me, and I can rise above totalitarian regimes.
But then, like, you see him play that out, and it's like, you don't know how to take care of
It's
yourself.
not going real well, yeah.
Let alone anybody else. But, yeah. So, this leads to the escape scene that we've all seen from different angles at this point. Which is them escaping in the car and crashing and everybody escaping.
That was cool because I figured they just escaped on their own. So I love that they took what they planted and said, no, wait, there's actually a lot more to it.
That was a really cool idea on the way they did it. And like I said, I like how they piecemealed it kind of backwards and made you kind of work for it more or less to see what had happened. So we get the next, we go to the bus stop. And so the bus is finally pulled up somewhere and Luke's like, I'm going to go back and find my wife and my kid. And then she's like, okay, before you do that, let me show you something. How's that? Come into this church. It's cool. I got things to show you. And she's like,
everybody, did you notice everybody else is like, I'm not
going to that church.
I don't need to go in that church.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Before she even mentioned what it was, they both had the visceral reaction to the smell when they first walked in. Like, before you even knew what they were going to show, they both kind of like made that face like, oh my God. And so you like knew something was kind of bad because he did it like when he first walked in, or she did. and one of them made it first and then second, and you were like, oh. And she's like, so this was the church where they tried to protect the fertile women when the brothers of Jacob were trying to take over. And it didn't go so well. And then they go to the shot, which is the creepiest freaking thing.
Yes.
At least in this episode. Obviously not in the show. But creepy as hell of all the people they hung from the ceiling of this church. And
which, it being in a church, too. And that's another Holocaust reference of a town in France that they rounded up all the Jews and they put them in a church and they burned them alive. And so the idea that you have this theocratic society where the church ostensibly would be the most holy place and you use that to threaten people and to torture people.
That's also something that happened here in America. The Klan used to burn down black churches full of people. They would lock them in.
Still does. Well, not necessarily full of people, but black churches are certainly targeted.
As beautiful as a horrifying shot can be, as far as camera work, and it was just the way they shot it, because they really didn't show any detail of the bodies or anything like that, but it definitely conveyed everything that you needed to see.
What I kept thinking too is about the commander and how he is so involved in how all of this works. And if he sat down one day and thought, okay, after the initial takeover, what will the next steps be? I know what we'll do is we'll hang people in churches. How much is he involved in those day-to-day decisions about how this is carried out? And is he going out and actively doing these things? And
that, again, gets into a similar Holocaust type situation of who's
culpable.
Who's culpable and who came up with the final solution, as it were.
I just carried it out. It was orders versus it was my idea.
At that point, it doesn't really matter who came up with it. Nobody said, hey, let's not do that. So, at this point...
They just,
Right.
Didn't get to keep saying it.
Exactly. Not for very long. So, at this point, Luke finally gets it, right? We've gotten through all of this. He's been chased down in an ambulance, shot, chased after, seen a woman with a tag on her ear. At this point, Luke gets it. He's like,
we know where Luke's threshold is.
Yeah.
It's dead bodies hanging in a church.
And I will say, as a man, that sometimes that's what it takes.
Dude, dead bodies.
Men always talk about well, I didn't know she liked me. I didn't catch on any of her subtle signals. Is that what that's like?
Very literal. I cannot tell you how many fights I've had with my wife where it's like, why did it have to get all the way to the point where I'm screaming at you for you to realize there was a problem way back here? And I'm like, I don't know. So why did it have to take...
Good that you know that about yourself.
Yeah, I do. So that's gotten better. But why does it have to take people hanging from the ceiling of a church for Luke to go, okay, maybe I shouldn't try and go back to where all the guys with the guns are that are trying to chase me down?
Well, and Luke's belief of his wife and child's aliveness fluctuates.
Quality of being still alive.
Right? Fluctuates throughout this episode.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's desperate to save them. Other times they're dead. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but then they're dead. But then, oh no, they're alive. It's like, no, they're dead until you hear otherwise. Or at least...
Schrödinger's family right there.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a little...
Again, it's his
pessimistic.
They exist in both ways.
Increased sense of self-worth, right? Well, if I go back and get them, surely they'll just hand them over. We'll go to breakfast as planned, and everything will be great.
I'll take care of it.
I'll erase my brain of all the dead bodies.
We'll go to pretend breakfast. It'll be great.
But then he goes, oh, from the ceiling.
Oh.
Interesting
church.
point there.
It's like light bulb
this
that
is
has like
a
been
thing
struggling
that
to
is
come on.
happening for
It's like
real.
a light bulb over his head that's been they couldn't get it.
Like flashing, trying to
bing. And he's like, oh, time to go then. Canada? Did you say Canada? I heard Canada. Let's roll.
Yeah.
So Canada's 10 minutes away apparently by boat or something. I don't know. They never really specify. In my head, it's like you jump over it like a creek and you're there. Clearly not how it probably is, but that's how I like to think of it. So now we get to the boat scene, which, once again, this show...
Now they can't shoot again.
Builds you up. Everybody's going to get on the boat. We're going to go to Canada. Not so fast, my friends.
I was pissed when that lady soldier died.
Oh, man.
Oh, dude, I was pissed.
So we get to the boat, and of course, the boat guy can't just be cool. Because, again, in Gilead, nothing is easy. Cool. And he's like, hey, this is capitalism. They only paid for 5. We got 6 here. And Luke's got drugs, so, drugs help.
And
how does a wedding ring put him over the top?
The wedding ring did not look particularly...
dude, he just gave you a shit ton of illicit drugs.
Again, if the currency
Take
is
the
turning
drugs.
over...
Yeah, I guess if the
maybe
currency...
gold is the best. It's the gold standard, right?
Really?
We're going back to the gold standard.
Because
That's what I
thought it was
assumed.
going for a watch or something.
That's what I thought,
And then
too.
he goes
And then he
for the
took out
wedding
his
ring,
wedding ring. I was like, that's it?
And then it just makes me remember I was like, I pawned my wedding ring to go to Lollapalooza.
But he wasn't willing to give up the wedding album like a week ago.
Maybe he's maturing and developing.
He's come so far.
But the church.
Luke's all grown up.
Now he's got the
all
ring
grown
off.
up.
Get that thing off.
So Luke gets on the boat, and this is the best part. Like, did you get the impression they were the only two that made it on the boat? Was him and the blonde woman?
Yes. Everybody else was
so
left in
how
the
I thought the
angry?
nun got on.
No, I don't.
No, I think
she
that
did.
nun got shot because she was hanging out with the army lady Zoe, who was the leader. How mad are you if you're those people? You just picked up
Right.
Luke like 10 minutes
Just
ago,
picked him up.
and Luke's on the boat because he had Percocet
Right.
and a wedding ring, and he got the blonde lady who's not
a critique
talking.
of
You know why?
capitalism
You know
is
why?
what
You
we're
know why they
saying
made it?
here.
Because he can take care of her. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna
I think
say.
he thinks he can. Oh yeah.
And somebody for him to take care of.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels better that way.
He needs to feel needed.
And so, yeah, because then the Gilead, the Guardians, they come out of nowhere and start shooting, which I thought the, like, shooting at night with
Was
the,
pretty.
like, that was pretty cool, where they were, like, glowing.
But also
like, I've never
kind
just
of...
realistically seen
Why
that
were
depicted.
they glowy? I didn't.
Because they're
understand.
hot. And
If
so,
there
Would
was
it be
the-
that hot?
I would think so. I would.
I don't
Yes.
know. Maybe I'm underestimating how
But when
cold
you
it
look at
was.
the guns that they have, I would assume that they're pretty powerful. So I've just never seen it portrayed like that.
It's like Nintendo. They're actual fireballs.
Yeah.
It's like G.I. Joe, where they're all
It did
lasers.
look a lot like a video game. I was like, I don't know about that.
And the shoot first thing, the only thing that irked me about that is this whole thread, which I totally buy, of we will do anything to save the fertile women.
Right, and wouldn't
So you would
think it's
they
fertile
would
women
do
trying
some
to
kind
escape.
of surround and then take the fertile women and then shoot Luke, whatever. He's expendable at this point.
Right.
But I don't think they would risk shooting the fertile women.
I
See, if they're
thought
really
the same
smart,
thing.
they just blow up the boat.
Right?
Rocket launcher.
Before people get on it, you mean?
Correct.
When you're a guardian, you can implement new rules.
I'm never going to be a guardian. I'm on the wall, hanging. I feel like we say this every
You
episode.
would be on the wall.
There's no
real
question
fast.
where Justin would
It's
be.
true.
So Luke makes it on the boat, which again, I would be so mad. I'd be like,
That guy just
that
found
guy,
out
we
like a
just
week
got
ago.
here.
We had to take him
The
to a
gay guy
church.
didn't get shot right away.
Right.
He was probably pissed.
Yeah.
Fucker.
That
Took
guy
my
got on the
spot.
boat. So then we fast forward 3 years later, which is we're supposed to think now the modern time that the show has been taking place in the whole time. And that would be my one complaint, is that the jumping back forth in timelines, because they're so close together, sometimes gets a little, where are we, when are we,
Confusing,
unless you're
yeah.
not paying attention. Because you're like, wait, especially last
It
week with
happened
the
Last
Serena
week,
Joy
yeah.
stuff.
I was just
you
going to
were like,
say, I got kind
the
of
only way you can
confused.
tell is hair and makeup.
Mhm.
And
you're
that
like,
was pretty subtle too, kind of.
Yeah, and so I was like, when are we? Where are we? Okay, we're now? Are we then? Are we then now? Or are we now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is her hair
How
slightly
early in this
looser
marriage is it?
or a little tighter?
Is that
Okay.
mascara? I can't tell.
Wait.
Alright, so we fast forward 3 years later and we are in
Little
I
America.
love that.
That was awesome. You know,
That was
it's
great.
like, so it's supposed to be like Chinatown or like Little Italy, it would be, and now it's in Canada.
And it's this marker of how low we've fallen, right? Because we are usually the one that has the little such and such.
Because
Now
everybody
we-
wants to come here.
Now we
Yeah.
are the little
Yep.
such and such.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting that like even the office where the American, I don't even know, they don't even really say what she is, whoever the government official is. It's like crammed into this little tiny boardroom, and like
Has,
all
like, a
three
couple
pictures
dead
of
presidents.
Ben Franklin
Yeah.
and George Washington and Abe Lincoln are kind of all stuffed in there. Like
Yeah.
we saved
Like
these.
all of America.
This is all that's left of America.
This is what we got. Just
Got it all.
these three dudes. I also wondered, like, would Little America be like the junky part of Toronto?
So Luke gets called into this government office. Flyers everywhere of all the missing people. And
This
so-
show makes me incredibly nervous for many reasons throughout the whole season, but that gave me a little bit of like a different nervousness. Like I got a little butterflies. Like I got like differently nervous.
Like, what would your flyer look like?
Well, yeah, and it just that one felt even more real than everything else.
Yeah,
like
Because that's something that we've
the-
seen happen.
right, and I was 18 or 17 whenever 2000 September 11th.
9/11.
Thank you. Words and thoughts. But yeah, so that one was like almost a more urgent nervousness than some of the other nerves that I felt as I've been watching the show and read the book. So it just felt super real, and I liked that detail a lot for that reason, because I think the show really tries to be authentic.
And this week, too, coming after the Manchester terrorist attack, where
Right.
there's people looking for their daughters who were at the concert. And
Well, Luke comes in, and then she's like, "Hey, you know some lady named June Osborne?" And he's like, "Yeah."
all I could think was Joan Osborne, and it was really distracting. What if God was one of us? And then we got on this whole train of Joan Osborne thinking, I just wish they'd chosen a different name.
So he just said, "Yeah, that's." I think he says it's my wife. And she says, we thought so. So she hands him the paper, which was the paper that she wrote the note on, which everyone's kind of wondering, what did she write? And so he asks her, how long ago did you get this? Because he's still trying to figure out, is she alive? And she's like, 3 weeks ago. So at that point, he figures out she's super alive. And the note says, I love you so much. Save Hannah. And then just the entire, this is kind of reminiscent of the ending shot with Offlin at the hospital, where they do just the close-up of his face. And it's just him crying.
How does he not immediately ask that woman, do you have any word of my child? Right after that.
Oh,
I thought that was a really...
Well, I think he's just
unrealistic.
overwhelmed with like...
Would you be that overwhelmed? Would you
probably.
not immediately ask about your kid?
Don't be
Huge
Luke
miss.
in this
Oh, I'm
situation.
Look, I said the first instinct, grab all the guns, shoot all the people. Not coat or pills or sutures. Gun, shoot, then we get all that stuff.
Same.
All that's going to be there. So that ends the episode. It was just Luke crying, which was all the feels for all the people. Because like when I hadn't watched it yet, so I was seeing all the reaction kind of on the social media, and it was like me. It was like more than one post that I saw. It was like me after episode 7. It was just like tears, and I was like, oh man.
I think what kept me from that, I told Justin earlier, I think I'm growing like a Handmaid's Tale thicker skin. I'm getting a little bit numb to some of it because out of self-preservation. But then also because I'm not such a Luke fan, it tempered the effect of the crying, where I felt bad for him, sure, but I didn't need to cry with him at that moment.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat.
Same.
Yeah.
But I like seeing the world as
Yeah.
it's occurring, and just seeing how it's all been affected, and the transition part of it, and just seeing how their idea of how that would take place.
It gives you some hope, too, that there's a resistance out there doing something, which I think was also something that left me not as depressed, because I thought there are other people outside who can act while in a limited way, and so we can look forward to that being part of the solution rather than, oh my god, it's just going to keep getting worse all the time.
Yeah, just bad.
The transition is super fascinating, and it's one of the reasons that the Holocaust is morbidly fascinating. When you learn about the Holocaust and you start to find out those details about the transition and who knew what and how long and who left when and how, that is so super interesting. And when in the book it's just like one page, she's like, and that's how they did it. They took our money, they took our jobs, and like, but those 2 pages I read over and over again because obviously I wanted to get it all kind of processed before I moved on with the rest of the book, but also because it is extra interesting. It is one of the most fascinating things about it. So I'm glad they're going into it in the show, because that was one of the things that I felt kind of was left to be desired.
In the book, that's kind of the thing that the carrot they dangle out at you for the vast majority of almost half the book is how the hell did we get here and how did it happen? And they don't really reveal that like until she talks about when they machine gun Congress, and even then she just kind of throws it out there.
It's like 4
comment,
sentences,
right?
Yeah, it's
and
like
you're
nothing.
What? Oh, all right. That's
I'm
how
like
they did it.
more interested in that than the Hannah situation. Although Hannah is interesting, but like I kind
Is
of
the
want to
Hannah
know.
situation dealt with at all? Because she doesn't really know in the book at all.
No,
So there's no way for her to. Okay.
no. But now that the show is digging into all of that,
we've seen glimpses of children at different stages and stuff.
Well, and the note addressing Hannah, like you get that that's going to happen, but I'm still more interested in the transition.
Which is interesting if you think about it in the way the book is laid out, or really happens, in that it's recordings of her that are found years after. Like you're to think of the, for lack of a better term, the Handmaid's Underground Railroad, where they finally gotten her out, because they find him in like a house in Maine, is what it is in the book. But that if those are the recordings then she doesn't know anything about Hannah then, which will be interesting to see how they deal with it in the show. Because if in the book she doesn't know, are they going to diverge from that and have her somehow find out about that? That's just a different path the plot takes, because obviously in the book she never knows if that's the last one we've heard from her or those tapes. But
She gets a picture though.
really?
Yes.
From Serena Joy.
From Serena Joy.
In exchange for something else, like Nick.
Agreeing to... No, it's not agreeing to sex with the book.
There's something else that happens, and Serena Joy says, like, I can show you a picture of Hannah, and she shows her a picture.
It's some kind of bargain, but you're right. I don't remember what
I wish I did.
deal is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're all thoroughly intrigued about where the show is going.
And where it's going to stop.
Yes.
We're gonna get
Yeah,
cut
with
off.
only
Although
3 episodes left.
I'm kind of ready. I feel like my head needs a little bit of a break from the intensity of.
Yeah,
the
could you
situation.
imagine if this was a long season show?
Whoa.
And it's funny to read the varying opinions on people that want to binge it or feel like they could binge it.
I keep
could
telling
not
people,
binge
do
this
not
show.
binge it.
No.
Don't do it.
I
You
know,
will be
right?
so depressed and your mind will be so fucked. Don't do
I
it.
binged Breaking Bad and it almost killed me.
Wow.
I know.
Never seen an episode of Breaking Bad.
Me
That's
either.
right.
Me either. I've been holding out.
Me neither.
Why?
Because it's long and depressing.
I don't
and
have-
I never
I don't
want
have
to
time
commit
for
to
that in my
something
life
long
right
and
now.
depressing.
Good though.
have
Everybody
time.
talks their ass off about it for a reason. It's really good,
Maybe in, like,
especially the
July.
end.
Sure, it's
the
really
end
good.
is so good.
You know what? I take that back. I saw the end.
No, Justin, I'm like
Yeah.
more
it happens.
infuriated now.
Yeah.
You don't even know about Gus Fring. He is one of the best actors. He kills it in season 3 and 4. No,
It's a whole nother
you
show.
gotta see
So
it.
disappointed now.
What? No, you're gonna have a sleepover.
Sarah's brain is about to
I
explode.
know,
She
like,
can't even
this
handle it
is-
right now. It's
It'll be
great.
July when it's like so disgusting outside that none of us want to leave the house that I might consider.
Correct.
I did it that one winter where we had all those snow days.
Oh yes.
Like
Oh,
back to
there you
back,
go.
like the semester
Act up.
didn't even start.
I need my kid to be on for a really long time for that.
All right, next week we'll be back with episode 8, and hopefully we'll probably still be sitting here talking about the fact that none of us have seen Breaking Bad except for Sarah, and she can't even handle it, or the fact that we can actually go visit the Von Trapp house.
Yes. Let's make it happen.
So many things.
Summer 2018.
And next week we might even make Sarah play piano. So episode 8 will be next week, and until then, thank you for listening to Mayday, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. You can find us. You've obviously found us, but if you want to tell anybody else where to find us, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. You can also listen to our awesome radio station on Slacker Radio. It's called Handmaid's Resistance Radio. You can download their free app from any of your app stores, and you can listen for free at slacker.com. As always, please rate and review us if you are so inclined. We love the feedback. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those places. Once again, this is Justin, Ria, Tiana, and Sarah for Mayday the Handmaid's Tale podcast. See you next week.